Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, I would love to do the ladies and gentlemen intro for this time, but I'm just gonna let myself ramble on during this wonderful intro by KUWAGO. It's titled Let's Start. By the way, TheLoneWarrior here, coming at you with another episode. Man, my voice sounds tired, but trust me, it's just a busy week or probably a busy day. uh, there we go. Also, I just woke up. Who thought it would be a good idea to do an episode while just waking up? This guy here. And for today's episode, actually, I just finished some things. Some things happened to me. All that jazz. So let's begin. So during my off-stream times, I usually just read. And one of the wonderful things now in our age is actually Amazon Kindle. I happen to have a collection of books that I can read on the go, or if I just want to relax over at some coffee place, or maybe at the mall. Maybe maybe there might be sometimes that you feel there's nothing you can do to relax. I do recommend at least trying out Kindle. If you don't have any books or physical books, pocket books that you can carry over and read outside. Well, I just so happened to finish one of the books in my collection titled How Not to Become a Millennial. It's written by Aaron Cleary, but the author's title there, I think it's Vince Barrick. And the story of that is the author wanted to have at least a pseudonym, or I guess we can call it a ghost pen name. He didn't want the book to be directly credited to him because, according to the author, the book was straightly blunt. Blunt. I'm having a hard time on pronouncing that. Blunt. It's blunt, and it goes down to the point where there might be some truths that people might be uncomfortable with, especially with the title, because onset of that, you're showing that this group of people shouldn't be imitated. But in his defense, he makes a good point on how not to become a millennial. I don't want to spoil the whole book. I do want to share on what I've gathered there on reading it. Anywho, on how not to become a millennial, the book details on why is the millennial no, I don't want to say millennial race, the millennial generation is so disadvantaged, and yet they are seen as the best hope for society, humanity, something like that. And there's some history there that goes on before this is what happens to the millennials. Like, we get a description of the golden age, the boomers, Gen X, a detailed description on how things go or how things went by during the course of time. I would say this is from an American perspective or a Western perspective, but it also applies to other factors. Since the author is an American, you can expect some references in history to be centered around America. But given with the explanation of history that millennials are entitled and Millennials are so whiny. There's some crossover there that warrants some merit. And also, in the golden age where it was during the recession, this is world recession before the World War. Some things may apply there. Like the people before us, our ancestors, our great grandfathers and grandfathers had had a hard time. So they had to make do and endure the struggles that they've experienced and thrive. And also in the book, indeed, it details that in our millennial generation, we have become soft, and also they have this entitlement what on how to run people. Like we have social studies, and we also have managerial positions, I guess. No, managerial courses like business management. And I am sure that this is the topic that the author is quite scared to be, criticized with. Because this criticism is not really, it's not really that, I don't want to say rare. It's not really something that people would dismiss, but it's also not acknowledged outright. They are aware, but given with the climate of we are in a politically correct society, um, saying things that might go against the narrative of being a millennial is horrible, or having social studies course, gender studies, it might be not taken easily. Now, for further context, oh, excuse me. Still enjoying my cup of coffee. For further context, reading How Not to Become a Millennial, I also one of the author's works, which is called Worthless. And on that book, Worthless details about how some courses are worthless, as the title says. And it also is mentioned again in the book on how not to become a millennial, wherein people have been creating jobs that don't really warrant from the people's wants and needs. So, a short explanation on it was on the book. People want people want this thing, but people want to create jobs for that thing. Say, we want to play video games, but how many video game developers are there to study and create games? Well, if you can see me right now, I'm shrugging, and honestly, the number doesn't correlate to the number, or so the demand does not correlate, or it doesn't satisfy the numbers of the people who want to play video games. Otherwise, how many people want designer bags or new electronics like new phones, new computers? And on the opposite side, how many people do want to be fashion designers, cloth makers, electric engineers, developers, and the like? Instead, people want to go on courses that don't really have a crossover on the people's ones. Like a prime example would be gender studies and philosophy. So on that topic, it is reviewed again on how not to become a millennial, and there are statistics there on the book. That's why the author makes a good point. Aaron Cleary is a wonderful author. If you can read the books, I don't really recommend the tone. It's not for everyone, given that he is an economist, and the way he tells things revolves around the data that he has gathered. So we have that. On reading the book, you'll hear this tone, or maybe you can feel the tone depending on how you approach in reading a book. Because when I read it, I felt the tone, man. The how not to become a millennial. He makes a good case on how millennials are disenfranchised and disadvantaged despite all the resources being given to them. Like people might say the millennial generation has this advantage of technology. However, we don't really have, for the millennials, conventional wisdom that people want this, so you should provide this kind of thing, like a supply and demand, right? We are only millennials were given the initiative, or given the thought that they are the future changers, and they're smarter than everyone else because they have a college degree. It goes inside the book for about maybe 30 chapters. It's quite heavy. And I do like the ending. I don't want to spoil the whole ending, but the ending of that book is the same message Aaron Cleary gives to his supporters or viewers. If you happen to also watch him, he does have a YouTube channel. That people are the most important thing in the world. Likewise, people are also the biggest hindrance of on your success. Now imagine that statement. People are the most important thing in the world. It is true. You might be proficient in cooking, or proficient in, you might be the best software engineer, you might be the best basketball player, you might be the best lawyer in the world, but with no with no other people to serve with your skills, it might as well be that the it might as well that the skill you have might not be uh, might not be at of value on what we are currently used to. Imagine if you're a lawyer and there's no people for you to actually defend or prosecute in court, your skill will grow stagnant, right? So people are actually the most important thing in the world. They are the ones that you'll have to interact with, and they are also the ones who, if you can serve people in a way that you meet their needs, you'll thrive economically. It's one of the messages that's inside the book. But this is for any other skill. Like, it might be for an artist, might be for a performer, it might be for a truck driver. Any skill, it revolves around other people. And also, people are also the biggest hindrance on your success. Now, imagine there's people that would want for a call on, let's make use of the example given in the book. There's people that would like to call on environmental change, and curriculums in schools have been given budgets on preventing climate change, preserving the environment. However, on tackling the problem of climate change and saving the environment, there's a course there titled that, I guess, environmental studies. I think that's the name. But the people that being tapped into are mostly biologists, chemical engineers, on how to forge? No, how to craft chemicals that are more environmental friendly, things like that. So people have this idea to create a preventive measure. About, however, in creating that preventive measure, we're going to tap people from who've worked with it from experience, right? So you don't really know on who to follow. people are the biggest hindrance that you you can experience on your success. Imagine people lying to you. This is the book's language. Imagine people that lying to you that you'll have you have to take this course or you have to take this degree, and then you'll proceed to have a happy life, you'll get paid big, you'll do great things for the world, but that would be something that people lie on so that they can get your money. That's the tone of the book. It's quite dire, but again, with the previous statement that I've shared with you, that people are the most important thing in the world, it leaves some room for optimism, and you can you cannot or be you can avoid being a millennial. Let's see. What else? It's quite a heavy read. I do want to share more, but it's not enough to give justice. I want you to also read the book. Well, well, outside for the review, I'm just going to share some things here and there on what happened to me. Well, I recently shared on the previous episode that I've become a trainer, and or maybe that wasn't that specific, but I do have a new designation now. With that comes another time adjustment. I've managed to come up with other games that I can play. Since League of Legends, by the way, is handled by Riot now for our area, Southeast Asia, I managed to play some games. So I'm happy about that. Starting from scratch because I linked an account. So here's what happened. Here's what happened. Riot hosted an event or a time period where your Garena account for Southeast Asian players, you can link it to a Riot account so that your progress doesn't get removed. However, after that linking process, I actually lost the credentials on the account. So I don't know if that's totally lost for me or if I can still remember the password on that. Anywho, I created a new account. It's quite refreshing to play again from the beginning. Get the League of Legends return. Also, another thing would be, uh, well, how do I say this? With the return of League of Legends, I've been playing less Tekken 7 for now. The most recent time that I played Tekken 7 was on a different place, an offline cafe and gaming lounge. And for the most part, I just explored the roster. I was looking to practice Armor King and Mishimas, but I ended up finding out other characters like Craig Marduk. I always have trouble dealing with it, dealing with Marduk when I have a matchup, especially if the Marduk has multiple grapple setups. Lay, because we do have the best Slay player in the Philippines playing in that cafe. So I happened to copy some of the moves and setups. Best that I can do because there's still a difference. Also, I actually managed to play some King there. King Kazuya. There's also the happenstance of finding out other characters like Miguel. Miguel has a simple combo structure. Geese. I revisited Geese because I also happen to play King of Fighters, but not to the level or extent that I compete in Tekken 7. So that's that. I also have this new mission now to skill up. I am skilling up. Given with my new designation at work, I am expected to some degree to be capable, right? And from time to time, I'm rereading, relearning, and reviewing my references on skilling up, coding, and presentations. So far, people have been satisfied and happy with how I perform. So here's to hoping I can maintain that. But I do miss gaming and I do miss streaming. But you can be sure that this podcast would be once a month, from time to time I'll post over here because I still need to sharpen up my skills in English. This is the primary purpose of the podcast. I do miss the RPG games. I am happen to be playing some offline Final Fantasy 13. I'll revisit Tales of what Tales is it? Vesperia. There's also The Edge of Eternity, and so many games in my backlog. But anyway, that's it for my for this. That's it for today's episode. All right, I'll stop it there. I'm going to see you next month. So I'm gonna let this music play to close out the stream.